Yeah, now we're on.
Are you ready? We are calling the special calls meeting to order at 6 o'clock. This is a public meeting to discuss the ESSER funds. And I believe Dr. Sormani, are you presenting?
Yes, ma'am.
And I will share my screen so that I can share the plan. Dr. Bob Thomas, I'm President and Board of Trustees. We're here tonight. One of the requirements of the federal funds that are known as ESSER is to have a public hearing to get your input and the input of the public on this draft plan that we've created. And here with me tonight also, I have our Director of State, Federal and Special Programs, Ms. Elva Torres. She generally works with a lot of our applications that have to do with federal funds, and this one is federal funds, of course, and so there's all that goes with it. And so she's there to help me out if I misstep on anything, or if you have any questions about the fund itself and some of the rules behind them. So again, tonight is about getting input. We've gone through several iterations of this, so I'll do the presentation, I'll stop, and then at your pleasure, you can ask for comment from the audience as well. Okay. Just quickly, I want to get this out of the way. So it's the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Funds, better known as ESSER these days, ESSER 3 in fact. And these are the funds that were allocated by Congress in reaction to the coronavirus. And so some people know it as the Coronavirus Relief Fund. There are two goals that we have in using these funds that we are trying to accomplish. Very briefly, one of them is to close, and I'm sorry, I shouldn't say close anymore. We're really accelerating student learning in order to close the gaps that may have appeared due to the pandemic. And we know that there are some of those. And very briefly, real simply, we plan on determining the scope of that work. We need to do that once we get all the kids back into the school system so that we can assess. Then we'll target that support, and then we will move forward more quickly using resources that are in this plan. The second piece of this plan, very broadly speaking, is to help increase the supports for students and families. We know that there has been quite a bit of trauma. Some of it is known, some of it is unknown. And a lot of it won't be seen until the families and the students are back in the school system and fully engaged. Or if they're not fully engaged, even coming back, we need the systems in place to be able to reach out to those families and begin to support them. And so you will also see in this plan efforts to assess, to identify the families and resources that allow us to provide support, and also to help those students be strong in the classroom. I'm not sure exactly how to word that, but we need to help support them so that they feel good in the classroom once again. Some kids, remember, have not been in a classroom literally since March of 2020. That's well over 12 months and 14 months and counting. So there is going to be some transition for students. We're planning to be prepared to use these funds to help that. Process of gathering input. We started that process on April 14th. Dr. Thomas called the meeting. We invited parents and staff members from across the district. They came together and created some ideas and some first drafts. May 6th, we took some of those drafts, well, not those, some of those, we took all of the drafts from that meeting to the principals on May 6th. We got their inputs. They told us what they thought was the most important things that they saw from the input from that first task force. On May 13th, we showed you a very rough draft document with that information and what we were thinking. On May 17th, we took to the district advisory committee, and we took their comments on that same draft plan to find out what they were thinking and any sort of changes. And then on May 18th, we had a PTA council. So many of the PTA officers and PTA presidents from around the district to get their input as well. And for the plan we bring to you today is that draft plan. It will be posted, or it has been posted. I wasn't sure which yet. We're at that point, but it will be posted on our website so that anyone can email us and comment as well. We also have a plan Sometime in the next week or two, once we have summer school students, I plan on convening a group of students to look at the plan as well, to give us some feedback on certain aspects of the plan that might directly impact them and how they would like to see those plans implemented as well. Just some broad details to consider. This is also definitely for the public. Some of you may already be aware of these things. We know that there are students out there that have a lot of unfinished learning and have developed gaps for one reason or another. There are a lot of different reasons during this pandemic, whether virtual learning didn't work for them, whether they had sick family members, whether they experienced trauma. There are a lot of reasons why, but there's definitely been some disruption that we know we need to address. Acceleration is better than remediation. We're coming with this mindset that we don't want to go. So some students have been in the school system 14 months. We don't want to put the student back 14 months. We need to work on things at their grade level, but then reach backwards to those things that they've missed and try to teach those at the same time. And it is a teaching model that's been done before, and it's one that we're going to emphasize to help kids accelerate in their learning. The total grant is 2.8 million roughly, and that's over a 2-year time period. These are one-time funds. That is a point of emphasis that I'm supposed to make with the school board, that these funds will not be renewed by Congress or supplemented by the state of Texas. And so that we have to assume the 2.8 million will be gone in 2 years. And then finally, positions that are grant funded, they could be absorbed into the regular budget after those 2 years. And that's another point of emphasis that's required for me to be made with the school board. These positions that are going to be funded, that we're recommending be funded, will not be funded by Congress or TEA after 2 years. We will need to make a decision whether we continue to fund those positions after 2 years or not. We are in an enviable position compared to some of our fellow districts because we are a growing, rapidly growing district, which means we are constantly adding positions, as you probably can see tonight. So our intention is to absorb positions in the future along with our growth. However, I do need to tell you that because these are federally grant funded positions, HR is going to ensure, along with Ms. Torres, that everyone who fills one of these positions has to sign a paper that says they know that's grant funded, and the position can't be terminated. Terminated is a bad word, but position has been dissolved within 2 years. So the board also has that option in 2 years to say, we don't want to keep these positions, and those positions, it's okay to make them go away. It's a little bit different than a regular teaching contract position. So plan components. So you're going to see these topics up here, and if you look at them and they don't seem to quite match down here, don't be alarmed. The ESSER funds give us specific topics that we're supposed to connect everything to. And then there's the big long paragraphs of definition that what goes in there. So all I did is I took the actual topic, broad topic, and we've already vetted that these things fit under those topics. So I always see it's a little weird when you're working with federal funds. They just give you these topics and they just stick all kinds of things to them. So don't be alarmed. But the first plan component is supporting teachers. And one way we've been trying to find to support teachers, to get elementary teachers more planning time. Without going into a lot of detail, elementary master schedules, it's difficult to squeeze extra planning time because of the way elementaries are scheduled. And one way to do that is to hire these 14 individuals. 7 of them are teachers, 7 of them would be aide positions. That will enable core area teachers to have more time to plan because their students will be in technology class. And we have a lot of ideas how to leverage that technology class to link with our technology plan that Mr. Gideon's team has rolled out and has been presented in other places. That's what this, the connection with this is, providing that professional learning community training to ensure that that extra time we're creating is maximized in its use. There for any questions or wonderings on that.
Or anybody from the public as well, if anybody online has a question.
How did we advertise this meeting? Because there are very few people in the waiting room.
Well, the same way that we always do. I mean,
It was on the posting on the website. Okay.
It's on Facebook as well.
This playing components is the more time on task. One of the ideas that the secondary folk brought to us is they feel like that they've got supports for students they already know were struggling learners, and they have supports for students who are advanced learners, but they feel like they were lacking some resource for kids that they don't know are struggling learners that are going to show up in some of the classes that are your regular reading and math and writing classes. So we came up with this concept of pushing in 2 people on each campus who would actually literally go into the classroom and assist the teacher in small groups working in math class or ELA classes at the secondary level. So this would actually be 2 people per campus. So 2 at the 9th grade center, 2 at Hutto High School, 2 at Hutto Middle, and 2 at Farley Middle School. And these are teaching aid positions. We also are hoping that we can use some of Dr. Almquist's Grow Your Own People to make this almost like a training ground for future teachers who are trying to work on their certification, because they would literally be working under the tutelage of a established teacher to help out.
So how will that work? Will they be in classrooms assisting? Are they pulling kids out? What does that look?
They could be used in different ways. One of the ideals would be, so the teacher would go stand and do the initial instruction, get kids going. But there's always those groups of kids that are going, well, I didn't learn what you needed last year to be able to do the problem this year. So what am I going to do? So this just gives the teacher an extra person to work with that group of kids if she's going to go or he's going to go work over with this group of kids. And so the idea is to push in, but there might be an opportunity for pull out too as well, but it wouldn't be necessarily like you do in elementary where you have an automatic pull out.
Is that going to be the basis that we use to identify the kids that we don't know about right now, to find them at that spot by using the teacher in the classrooms going in and out?
Actually, depending on the grade level and the subject, there's a number of different ways that we're going to be identifying students at the very beginning of the year. That's kind of separate from this. You identify those kids, then you'll have this as the intervention. Because the principals are going to have to decide where to deploy these 2 people and at what point. And not all curriculum is made equal. The beginning of 6th grade math, it's tough. If you've been struggling, you've missed some of 5th grade math, it's even tougher. So we know 6th grade math is probably a place we need to go. But I will tell you, the last half of algebra, the last 6 weeks of algebra, that's tough. And the last half of geometry, that's tough too. And that's going to draw more attention than other areas. So the principal's going to have to use that data, knowledge of the curriculum to where the people go. What we don't want is not going to be something where I send it to Ms. Turner's classroom and that's where the person's going to sit for the rest of the school year. That's not going to be an effective use. And since you have different class periods all day long, it makes sense for them. They might be floating. It may make sense for that person to work with a particular group of kids to build relationships. That's something we're going to have to work out once we see the data and start working with the principals.
But we do know that mathematics will be the highest area of need, because I think that's where kids experience the most of the unfinished learning.
So that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
The teaching assistants, if this is the direction that we move forward, will they have like common planning time with those teachers that they're working with? So they're like familiar with the lessons and really engaged in that instructional piece?
No, I hadn't even gotten that far, but that is a good idea to ensure
Yeah, most definitely.
that's something, once we get these positions and we start getting them in there, we're going to have to sit down and figure out exactly how we're going to schedule these persons on there. Although I envision it mostly like almost like a special education inclusion person would be. It's always more effective when the person gets a chance to sit in on those PLC times.
Mm-hmm.
Next one on empowering parents. This is some of the resources to support parents and students. We are going to add another social worker for the secondary. That's in addition to the position that you added in the regular 199 local funds. So that gives us 4 total positions at the secondary level. We're going to increase our intervention services, and found out that this is actually very timely. Intervention services, just a reminder, is an outside group that we contracted for the first time this year, and they are allowed to provide therapy, which our staff is not allowed to provide. But the nice thing about intervention services, they will work off of our campus, which allows families that may have struggles getting their child to therapy services. We can actually do it on campus because they can provide that. And they provide a range of services. And the reason why it's timely is I just found out from Ms. Jen Porter, our Director of Student Services, that Intervention Services found out that the federal grant that was helping subsidize their cost has disappeared from the federal government, interesting enough, which I think is strange in this time period. But luckily, we're putting up the funds because their cost is going to increase for next year because they don't have the subsidies anymore.
So we're trying to, the teachers, since we're a fast growth district, we're trying to bring them, use these for 2 years and then hopefully they'll turn into permanent teachers for us
Mhm,
down the road. Is the same thing true with the
mhm.
intervention services and all these positions here?
Yes, I think these positions too are also ones that we might, that we would consider keeping. Intervention services is something, it's an interesting, I'm not sure where we'll go in the future with that, but there are some reasons why a school district doesn't want to get into that business because now you're dealing with medical level things and there's some, we looked into it once, Mr. Gideon did, and there are some other issues when you start trying to do doctors and that level of therapy. But that particular service has been, well, we could have used more of it this year even. We definitely know we're going to need more of it next year. Hopefully, over time, this decreases our need for this decreases.
So that contract, I think when we talked at the PTA meeting, is that a block of hours that we're going to be getting from the contract or is it just as needed?
I looked into exactly what that contract is. We actually are paying for a person all day long, or I should say by day. I can't remember exactly how many days we get. But that person is there on campus to provide therapy. For example, right now, the person, their day is full. They're meeting with kids all day long. Don't have, well, they have lunch break, but that person works on our campus almost like a member of the campus. But of course, obviously, they have confidential, we don't get involved and they don't share certain information with us because it's all confidential medically. So our intention is to increase the number of days we have services and we'll end up with 2 people. One person will be just high school and one person will move to the 2 middle schools.
What are the qualifications that they're going to be bringing in?
Don't know off the top of my head, and I don't know if Jen is out there, but these people have a certification that allows them to, I don't want to say they're psychologists because that may be a step too much. I just know that they have whatever licensure is above what our social workers have that allows them to do direct therapy services that persons are not allowed to provide.
Assuming they find a need for a child, what's the next step that they need to take in order to get the help for that child?
Our usual process in a perfect world is a counselor might identify someone that's struggling or an administrator that's struggling more than the counselor seems to be able to work with. Since the counselors don't do that type of therapy, they work with our on-site social workers. They've known different names, crisis counselors or such. And at that person, when they work with them and their family, identify that this is a student that potentially has a need for some sort of therapy services, that social worker will work with the parent to get the proper paperwork signed. And it depends on the parent. The parent obviously has choices, whether they want to go through their own outside network, insurance, or maybe they have somebody they want to see, or they want to access the services that we have available on campus. And if they sign the paperwork, at that point, it becomes intervention services that works directly with the family and does any referral to outside services. They don't necessarily communicate with us because for the confidentiality reasons, just let us know that they're seeing or serving particular students.
Well, this, I know previously we attempted to put something like this in place at the high school. That's where it was housed. So will they travel to campuses based on the kids that have been assigned to their caseload? Or, for example, if there's an elementary student, how do we connect them to that?
I don't know the answer to that question, but I could find out for you.
Yeah, but a lot of times when they're servicing children at the high school and middle school, if there's younger siblings, they usually treat the whole family and not just that one child. It depends on the need. But yes, even though this has a secondary focus, because that's where we have the most need identified, it does not prohibit them from servicing a child at the elementary level as well.
The transportation plan might be important because one of the reasons why we feel like this is an advantage is in the event that families can't provide transportation, it's in a convenient location. So figuring out how if
Yeah,
it's on a different campus where this service is based out of.
it's my understanding that the services go to the child and not the child to the person providing the intervention services.
So we would just have to figure out what the infrastructure on campuses look like so they have a secure meeting place.
Oh, yes, most definitely.
Great idea.
Yes.
Along with those is the adding of the parent engagement specialist, and the revamping of the old Blue Bonnet Clinic into a multi-purpose parent engagement. The idea this is all connected, that the parent engagement specialist will be at that location along with intervention services, along with the social workers. Kind of go back to you. It's almost like a one-stop shop. The parent is struggling, they can go into the parent engagement. The parent engagement person says, there's some things that, that are not in my realm. But why don't we sit down with this person, social worker? They're all there. You don't have to go hunting for anybody. It's kind of the idea that we're shooting for with that. I think that's in some ways the vision of the Blue Bonnet Clinic only was, but unfortunately they weren't. You're staffing it consistently.
I love this idea. I think that's a really great idea. And all those key players in the same place. And so if they're interacting with those families, everybody is involved and aware of kind of each other's work. I think that's a great idea.
This one comes under rigorous materials, and the elementary principals especially were asking for more dedicated resources than above and beyond what we currently have in the area of reading. And so we already have several actually master research certified people in school support, but they were asking for another one to continue to help that process in the PLCs. So you add the extra time, and they're asking for another person dedicated to just supporting reading at the elementary level. And so that's what this purpose of this is. Oh, and that was the last one.
Anybody have any questions? We can also take questions, like whoever is ready that, if there's chat questions or
Or
in the
anybody?
audience.
Yes, anybody here?
Looks like it really is supporting a lot of the things we already have in place that we know are doing good things. So just strengthens, just like you said in the beginning, the work that we're already doing.
Well, thank you very much, Board. Appreciate it. If you obviously have any questions, you can always send it my way, and I will look up answer your question as soon as I can.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Samani.
And Todd, just confirming there were no public comments turned in from this. Okay, and we will adjourn the special called meeting at 6:23. And
Do we have to make an adjournment?
yes,
Okay, I'll make that motion then.
so motion by Ms. Hubbard, sorry about that.
Okay.
And second by Mr. Chavez.
Not even here?
You could have jumped in.
That's what confused me. All in favor? Okay, meeting adjourned at 6:24.
Billy. Them know that we have to log off and then there's.
Okay, so for the people online, this was a special called meeting, so we're going to log off of this meeting. And is there a new link for them to log on? So you'll just log on to the link for the regular scheduled public meeting.
At 7:30.
7:30.